My name is Laura, and I'm 32 years old. I have been married for 3 years to my husband Nick, who is the same age as me. Both of us are full-time employees and are busy at work, so we share the house chores and we are balancing it reasonably well. We had no children yet, but we enjoyed our life together. I'm a sales representative for a major company, and because of all the difficult tasks, I was paid pretty well, but compared to that, Nick's income was a little less. But I respected Nick for doing what he loved and his motivation as well as his pride toward his work. Nick was often away from home as his hobby was fishing, but I could forgive him if I thought that he needed it to take a break from work. I had no complaints about the fact that we kept our savings account separate, and I was responsible for all living expenses except for the rent, which we split equally. I didn't have hobbies like my husband did, and I just simply liked to see him having fun, so I was fine with him spending money on his own hobbies. And I was really fine with the thought that instead, I would be saving the money to support for our living expenses. If I had any complaints about Nick, it was about his parents, especially his mother, Wendy. We live very close by to my in-laws, and since Wendy couldn't walk around well, Nick visited her frequently. That in itself was completely fine, and I was happy to go with him if he took me there on days when, well, we didn't have plans. Today was also one of our day offs, so Nick had asked me to go to his parents' house and bring a gift over. Well, it's been a long time, hasn't it? I'm sorry. Wendy said this as she put her hand on her cheek and let out a huge sigh. Wendy said that it's been a long time, but we just saw them last week. Well, I guess she said that because Nick was the only one who visited them last week because I had to go into work on my day off as it was urgent. I understand that you're busy at work, but before you're an employee, you're first and foremost my son's wife, right? Well, yes. Every time I see her, Wendy sarcastically talks to me like this. She doesn't like the fact that I work hard and earn more money than Nick. A woman is supposed to support her husband. It's disgraceful for a woman to work so hard. Wendy says these things, and she also says that Nick is humiliated because of how hard I work at the company. Oh, Mom, stop it. Laura and I both discussed about this on our own already. Oh, really? Well, if you say so, then there's nothing we can do about it. It was a regular occurrence that Nick would end up stopping Wendy from criticizing me. I think Wendy, who has always been a housewife, doesn't like me working so hard at the company and will never understand my feelings. I'm really sorry. On the way home, Nick always apologized to me. It was terribly stressful to be criticized and be lectured by Wendy every time. But I managed to put up with it because Nick always defended me and apologized to me as he was worried about me. Hey, it looks like you didn't put in this month's rent. When I checked the bank book after work, there was no money put in for the rent. This means that I can't withdraw the money to pay for the rent. I asked Nick if he had forgotten to put the money into the account this time, as he usually puts it in himself once he receives his salary. I don't have enough money this month. Again? This happened often. He probably bought something and then ran out of money and wasn't able to pay even half the rent. When I sighed in dismay, Nick just laughed to cover it up. Sorry, please just pay it this time. He said it as if it was no big deal. I can understand if it just happened only once or twice. I know that there are times where he wants to buy something that's expensive, but... Hey, you did this last month too, you know. Well, a limited edition fishing rod just came out. You said the same thing last month though, right? Even if you wanted to buy one, couldn't you have at least discussed it with me beforehand? Even though we have our own separate accounts, if he can't even pay the amount he's supposed to pay, then that's out of the question. Nick only gets to pay half of the rent, and if he couldn't even pay that, I have to bear all the rent, plus the living expenses. I definitely can't do that on my own.
Ugh, just stop nagging me.
He interrupted me saying that, as I was hoping he would understand my point, but he just let out a huge sigh. Nagging? I understand that this can happen from time to time, but I only said that because we decided to pay the rent together. I was a little bit concerned about how he usually spent his money, but I didn't really confront him about it before, not even once.
If anything happens, you mention money, money, money for everything. Aren't you too obsessed with money, Laura?
I was so shocked when he said that to me. How can you say that? But we can't live here if we don't pay the rent, right?
Talking about money all the time is disgraceful.
What? Disgraceful? That's what Nick had said to me. Why would he say such a thing? I knew that Nick didn't care much about money, and that was one of the parts I liked about him. So, even if he didn't save much money, I thought that it was fine if I saved money instead, and I thought that it was completely fine if I was the one who was managing the family finances. And to him, that's a disgrace. Seeing me not saying anything, I guess Nick thought that I couldn't say anything back to him, and he let out a sigh while saying this.
I mean, I knew you're like that for a while, but like my mom says, women are usually supposed to stay at home and support their husbands.
What?
If you don't support me for being your husband a little, you're the one who's going to be embarrassed later on, okay?
As Nick says that, he looks down at his phone. I had nothing more I could say to him. Nick had always apologized to me that Wendy's thoughts were old-fashioned and that she didn't understand me. But in the end, it all comes down to that idea? What does my husband mean by supporting him for being my husband? Is it to support the family finances silently? I'm home. Welcome home. I came home late one day because of work, and Wendy had welcomed me back home. What? Wendy? I didn't hear that she'd be coming over. I looked at her all confused as she took my bag and went inside the living room. I was speechless after seeing the living room. What's this? The living room was so crammed with cardboard boxes and packages that were not there in the morning, and I couldn't step around anywhere. Not only my mother-in-law, but also my father-in-law were there. My husband was laughing goofily watching the TV and drinking beer. Hey, what's this all about?
Don't talk in a loud voice.
Hey, what is this? I was confused, and Nick frowned.
My mom and dad moved in today.
They moved in? To our house? I had never heard about anyone moving in, and Nick didn't even mention anything about this in the morning either. My mother-in-law, without any care in the world, is smiling and began to unpack her stuff. Hey, I didn't hear anything about them moving in with us.
Mom can't walk well anymore. I mean, she can still walk a little bit, but it's hard to make a living for her on her own, isn't it?
But
we have an extra room at our house anyways, so it's okay. It would be better for you to live with Mom too, so this shouldn't be a burden for you.
Yes, I'll help you out with the housework, and it's better for you because you're always busy with work. I guess they all really don't care about me anymore. I told my husband that I didn't want to live with them, but he didn't seem to listen to me at all, and more than anything, seeing Nick being like this, I almost began to cry. We went through the trouble of renting a larger house in order to have more room for our baby in the future, but I had never thought that our family would grow in this way. The days living with Nick's parents were hell. Nick's parents, who had taken over the room I had left empty for our future baby, walked around the house like they owned the place. My favorite sofa and dining table were no longer available for me to use. I was told that wives are to do her chores and are not even allowed to sit down. The only time I could sit down was when everyone was asleep and I was alone. Eating the leftovers all alone brought tears to my eyes every day. What am I doing? How did this even happen? My in-laws never paid for anything, and when I asked them for financial support, they said, "You're earning a lot, but you're frugal with your money. Are you trying to take our own pension money?" and would yell at me. When I consulted Nick, he looked at me with dismay. "It's fine, it's just money. Mom is doing housework, so they're helping you, right?" Wendy would say that in the end, her feet and legs hurt when there were places to clean and cook and washing the dishes, so I had to do it all in the end. She did the laundry, but I didn't want to put my clothes in with my in-laws. In the end, I did my share of the laundry by myself, and since they arrived, there are more people, which meant more housework and a bigger financial burden, and so I complained about that, but they wouldn't listen to me at all. On the contrary, they'd all yell at me, saying that they didn't think that I was such a cold person. What the hell? If you have a problem, then get out! Nick, who would say that to me, was no longer the husband I loved. I should leave now. I didn't think I could be happy living with these people. This dish isn't tasty at all. I don't like what you're wearing. Why are you home so late? Don't you ever think of doing chores for your family? Day after day, I was blamed for many things. I got used to seeing meals thrown away without being touched, and personal belongings that had been in my room somehow ending up in the garbage before I knew it. I was so numb that I didn't think anything of it anymore. This month's living expenses. You're still talking about that? You earn a lot, so you should do it. But my credit card is also being used without my permission, right? Is this all because of you, Wendy? I only borrowed a little. I'll pay you back someday. Wendy snickered when I showed her the detailed statement. I don't know what she spent on, but how could she spend nearly $5,000 in 1 month? Well, Wendy did admit to using my credit card without any permission. And even if she didn't, there are a lot of branded goods in her room that she obviously bought with my credit card, so I guess she couldn't get away with it. Nick knew about this, but he didn't say anything. He no longer does the house chores that we shared to do when we lived together, and he doesn't even want to look at me. But I won't let that happen forever. That's enough. The next day, after my lawyer called me and told me that, I told the company that I would take a paid leave, and after I left the house, I returned with the movers and their truck. What about work? Wendy, who was the only one left at home when I returned, asked me curiously. She looked at me and at the movers who were behind me and looked confused. Excuse me, but we might be a little noisy. Huh? Who are those people? Well then, please start your work. Ignoring Wendy, I told the 3 staffs from the moving company who were behind me. I walked past Wendy, who was taken aback by what was happening, and led them to my room. Please take everything out of here. All right. I watched them with a refreshed feeling as the 3 of them quickly packed up my stuff and carried them out of the house. If only I had decided to leave earlier, I would have been out of this hellhole by now. Hey, what are you doing? I won't let you get away with this. Wendy was yelling at me, but when I ignored her, she started to call someone. It could have been Nick or my father-in-law, or both. I don't mind if she calls them, though. I'm sure it will all be over by the time they get back here. Wendy complained and tried to get the movers to stop, but of course, she couldn't stop them. Oh, sorry, this is the last one. After they had moved out most of my things in the room, I asked for one last thing to be moved and turned to Wendy, who had been nagging me the whole time. "I'm leaving." "Huh? Will you please give this to Nick?" Just as I was about to hand the envelope to Wendy, the front door opened. I saw Nick, who had rushed in. As I had expected, Nick had returned after all the moving work was done. The movers had completed their work in just half an hour.
What the hell?
Nick looked at my empty room and was speechless, and then he glared at me.
What the hell do you think you're doing?
"Well, you came just in time. I'll just give this to you." Ignoring Nick's angry face, I smiled and handed him the envelope. My husband was taken aback, and when he saw what was inside the envelope, he was so shocked.
"Divorce papers?"
"What?" Wendy also rushed to look at what was in Nick's hand. "What are you doing? How dare you give my son the divorce papers?" "It is what it is. Let's get a divorce, okay?" "My son married a terrible woman like you, so it's your duty to be grateful of him and serve his family." The movers who were waiting looked startled by Wendy's insults. Seeing such reaction from a third party who wasn't a part of the family, I was fully convinced that Wendy's behavior was abnormal. I'm not wrong that this isn't normal. You told me to leave if I had a problem with this, didn't you?
"I didn't mean it,"
Nick stammers. I guess he didn't really think that I would leave. And he probably didn't even imagine that I had the guts and that I would leave him. Did you really think that I would obey everything you say?
"Well, that's—"
I have plenty to complain about, so as you wished, I'm going to leave. I'm not stupid enough to put up with this and keep on staying here. I said this to Nick, who looked stunned, and finally left the house with the movers. I apologized for causing such a commotion to the movers, and they laughed and said,
"We know what's going on, so it's not a problem."
They all said gently,
"We all know how hard it was for you,"
and comforted me. The tears I had been trying to hold back began to well up. I was scared. I was sad. And I was frustrated. But I was able to finally leave like this. I was proud of myself. Afterwards, I officially asked for a divorce through my lawyer.
"If you have a problem, then get out."
After I was told that by Nick, I secretly prepared and planned for the divorce. I had consulted a lawyer and gathered evidence of the reasons for the divorce. I recorded all of Wendy's and Nick's complaints and criticism towards me, and recorded all of the dishes and personal belongings that were unreasonably thrown away. My lawyer told me that I had gathered enough evidence, so I immediately began to proceed the plan. I had already signed a contract for the house I was moving to, and all I had to do was move my stuff into it. I laughed at the thought of only a few cardboard boxes of my belongings, but I was excited at the thought of being able to live freely and being surrounded by the things I love from now on. I've given up my favorite sofa and dining table because I left them behind, but I can start over and eventually find my favorite furnitures again. My lawyer told me that Nick was being too stubborn and wouldn't agree to the divorce. I also heard that Nick and Wendy once stormed into the lawyer's office demanding to know my whereabouts. They also tried to wait for me in front of my office, but everyone at work who knew what was going on took care of me, and I was able to avoid running into each other with them. The things Nick and his parents said and did that I collected as evidence were so horrible. And if the case went to court, we definitely had an advantage. I heard that Nick had been complaining for a divorce settlement, but when he was told that a trial would cost him even more money, he reluctantly agreed to the divorce. I also demanded that Wendy return the money she spent with my credit card, as well as the alimony. Wendy was very much against the idea of paying the alimony, but I have proof on how she used my credit card without any of my permission. And when I told her that I would report to the police to make a case out of it, she seemed to give up. "We are a family." Wendy seemed to be saying that until the end, but what she meant by family was Nick, her husband, and herself. I wonder if she had forgotten that she had clearly excluded me from her family. I felt nauseous at the word family, which she used only when it was convenient for her. After the divorce was finalized and the alimony was paid, Nick and his parents moved away. It seems that the commotion brought bad publicity to the neighborhood and made it difficult for them to stay at that neighborhood. Moreover, the rent can be covered only by Nick's salary. Now, they rented a small house in a rural area and lived together as a family of 3 with Nick's small income and his parents' small pension.
"We are miserable because we have no money. Please come home."
Nick contacted me many times over text, but I blocked his messages without reading them. As for me, I'm finally living a happy life surrounded by the things I love and working at a job which I love. I don't have to worry about people throwing things away without my permission. I don't have to worry about people always complaining about me. It really is a comfortable life. There is a colleague at work whom I am interested in. We are both busy, but he's kind enough to say that we should go at our own pace. I know I've made many mistakes previously, so it's okay to take my time. Because he understands that, he says that he'll wait until I could trust him. We are both independent and are able to support each other. I will live my life with a person like him because I know that we both can have a good, happy life with each other.